In today's Who Cares mentality of most customer service representatives, I'll talk about some great service that I received from a few folks at a bank of all places in episode 63 of the I Can't See You podcast.
From Studio C, welcome to the I Can't See You podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello and welcome to the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you checking out today's episode. And as I mentioned, I got some great customer service from WSFS Bank. Now, if you follow along with the podcast, I've talked about how I was elected treasurer of the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. I'm just going to call it the Keystone chapter here on out because that is just too long. So we've been going back and forth, and the person who was the treasurer, she's a little bit older, and she and her partner have had some health issues. So it's been hard to connect with them. They don't live close. They live in Center City, Philadelphia. I live in the suburbs. So we finally got everything together thanks to the bank manager at the bank that we use, formerly Beneficial Bank, and now WSFS. And this guy, the manager's name is Bob Cummins, at the branch at 16th and Chestnut in Center City, Philadelphia. He's always been a friend to the Keystone chapter, and we've had some Meet the Blind Month events at his place on multiple years. And he's just been a very good guy for us. And I got to be honest with you, I don't think it's just with us. I think it's with everyone. But we've gone back and forth because I wasn't on the bank account as a signer. We had to fill out some paperwork. And of course, as you can imagine, for blind folks filling out paperwork, it's not the easiest. We finally got everything situated, and it was time to go in and actually sign the documents. And that was one day last week, and we set it up. It was a cold day. I talked to Patricia, who was the treasurer, and remains as a signer on the account because there should be more than one. And it's a little horrifying that she was the only one for the last few years. But we set it up. We were going to go in, I guess it was Friday, and I get all set to go in. And for me to go into Center City, it requires two modes of transport. First one is a bus. Second one is a train. And so I go out to the bus stop around 5 to 10 minutes before the bus is scheduled to arrive. And let me just back up for a second. I know a lot of folks have, think down on, I got to take the bus. Listen, I know if I want to go somewhere, I got a couple of choices. I could take the bus, I could take an Uber or Lyft, or I could walk. An Uber or Lyft, unless I'm carrying luggage going the mile or so to the train, is just outrageously priced at around $7 or $8, unless I've got some sort of coupon with one of the rideshare places. So, I take the bus. It's $1.25 for me to go. On a really nice day when my joints don't ache, I would walk it. But not in the winter. Those days don't really come in the winter for me. So I wait at the bus stop, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I start texting with Liz saying, if this bus doesn't come, I'm not going to make the train. If I don't make the train, then I'm not going to be able to sign, and it's just going to get pushed back again. Now, mind you, I was elected treasurer back on the second Saturday of January, and we're talking now the middle of February, or I guess towards the end of February, as it was the 21st we were meeting. So, or 22nd actually. So we, I'm waiting, and I text Liz. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, because at this point now it was too late for me to walk it, because the train was due to arrive at the station at 57 after the hour. It was now like 48 after the hour. And I thought, I'm still okay. If it comes in the next minute or two, I would be okay. Now, the bus was supposed to arrive at 45 after the hour. So I wait some more, and, then I start wondering, do I even take the bus? Do I even take and try to get on the train, or should I just call both the bank and Patricia and say, look, the bus never showed, I can't make it? I don't want to do that. I'm always fairly optimistic about stuff like that, and I want to try because I know it's been so difficult to get a hold of everybody, with Patricia having a day where she can get out, and the bank manager, Bob, being available. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to wait. I'll get on the bus and see what happens. You know, if I get there and I miss the train, I could always either come back or wait for the next one and just go in, and hopefully I can go in and just sign, even though Patricia would have already signed before. You know, unfortunately, unlike the New York City subway that Jane always complains about, a train doesn't come every 5 to 7 minutes on the Media Elwyn line. At that time of day, I believe the next one was probably only about 40 minutes away, which is good because most of the times it runs every hour, or, you know, give or take 55 minutes, an hour and two, whatever, but basically an hour. So I get on the bus and it's 54. And I know this because I was able to go back and check. You know, they have, you know, you use a card to tap on the meter, and, you know, it takes the payment out of the card. And then, of course, you can go back and look at all your trips. So I tap, and you know, I say to the bus driver, I said, "You're a little bit late, right?" He was not happy to hear me say that, of course. And he finally said, "Yeah, I'm a little late." Well, he wasn't a little late. He was 9 minutes late. And so, you know, I tell him that I'm getting off at Swarthmore train station, and where the bus leaves off and the train station is, it's still probably about a block, maybe a little bit less than a block, you know, to walk. So I get off the bus and I start walking quickly because I know the train's coming any minute. And as I cross the one street that I have to cross and I'm walking down the sidewalk, I hear what I think is the train. And it's not the train pulling in. It's the train when they sit there for a minute and you hear like the hydraulic stuff make some noise and things like that. So I start walking even faster. And then I hear another noise. And I'm like, uh-oh. And then I hear what sounds to be a noise that they close, not the door, but they have these things, you know, at the suburban stations, you know, at a lot of them here on the Media Elwyn line, you have to walk up steps to get on the train. It's not, you know, like getting on when you get on a subway somewhere, you have to walk up the stairs to get on. And so I hear, it sounds like one of those, and I'm just about to the corner where I have to cross one more street to get to the station. And then I hear, it sounds like it's starting to move. And I immediately this was so dangerous. I looked back at this and I thought, oh my God, I'm so lucky that A, I didn't fall, and B, I didn't get hit by a car, that nothing was coming. I hear the train start to move, so I run straight across instead of running through the crosswalk to the left and then crossing again, because it's a funny intersection there, or running across the street to the right and then crossing the street on the, you know, and the other street on the right. I run straight across, no crosswalk, no nothing. I just run straight ahead. And my cane is going, you know, again, like, like a windshield wiper in a monsoon. And I get to the curb. And then when I step up onto the curb, I tap something and there's a bike rack in front of me, and then past the bike rack, and meanwhile I'm yelling, please wait, and they're not waiting. And then I'm behind, I guess I don't know if it's an advertising sign or if it's a sign that shows, you know, the different routes for the different trains in the SEPTA system. But I get around that, and the train is just, you know, and I yell one more time, and at that point the train was going too fast and, you know, pulled away. I was so mad that I didn't even think about that I had what I had just done, run across the street without waiting. You know, usually when I get to a corner, or any blind person gets to a corner, you stand there for a second to hear what's happening. Cars coming from this way and cars coming from that way. And again, it's not a very typical intersection. There's 3 streets that lead to this intersection. You know, there's a funny one on an angle. There's the one that I had to, you know, then there's the one that's straight ahead that runs parallel to the rail tracks. You know, so there's 3 streets that lead. And, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm so mad, and I'm just trying to think, what am I going to do? And so my first thought is, well, let me call Patricia's house, because I know it's only about, about 40 minutes before we were scheduled to meet. Hopefully I can catch her so she doesn't go over to the bank because, again, it's difficult for her to get there. She and her partner, like I said, are having some health issues. So, I don't want to make them go out in the cold if I'm not going to make it. And so I call, they don't answer. And there's a lot of times that they don't answer. And then they call me, they'll call me right back because, they're in the middle of doing something or whatever. So I call and I leave a message and I wait. And then I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? All right, let me call the bank manager. So I call the bank and the person that picks up said that he was on a teleconference. He'd be on for another 20 minutes. Well, another 20 minutes still gave me some time before the next train came and before our meeting time. So I thought, okay, I'll call back. And, so then I'm just standing there, and again, it was a cold day. Now, when I was standing at the bus, waiting for the bus, I was in the sun. It wasn't very windy where I was, but now I'm getting cold because the train station, of course, has an overhang and it blocks the sun. The wind whips around because of the way it's set up and the openness of, there's a field across the street. So I'm standing there, I'm starting to get cold, and then I'm starting to realize what I had just done by running across the street without waiting. And again, as I say to Liz, when something bad doesn't happen, I always say to Liz, well, we're not hitting the lottery tonight because I already got it. I do that a lot when in the kitchen, when a door doesn't close all the way and then it slowly opens up and I barely miss hitting my head on it because, of course, I don't see it. I don't know that it's open. I've been texting with Liz and I was texting with Jane, and I was forgetting that it was Liz's, it was a non-extended day, work day for her. She works 3 days, as I've mentioned before. She works 3 days extended day. Not all the kids can go home at 3:00 when school is over. So they have afternoon activities for the kids, so they can do their homework, or if they're little, so they can, they end up reading books until their mom or dad or caregiver or whatever can come and pick them up. And so she works 3 days, and that goes from 3:15 to 6-ish. Sometimes it's a little later, sometimes it's a little earlier. But finally, Liz calls me as I'm texting with her. She's like, well, come on, I'll take you in. We'll run in. I said, we'll never get there by 3:30 at this point. It's like, 3:15 at this point. I said, but all right, come on over and we'll figure out what we're going to do. And so by then I wait, and, the next train hasn't come yet. I think the next train was supposed to come at 3:30 or 3:35. So Liz gets there, and I get into the car, and she's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't want to go into town if we have to reschedule. Let me call them. So I called the bank again, and the manager happened to answer, and he answered, hello, David. And I said, okay, that's pretty good service. Did you know, you knew from caller ID? He's like, yeah. And, and I explained to him what was going on. I said, the bus was late. I got to the train as it was pulling out of the station and so forth and so on. And he apologized to me. He said, I didn't realize you were coming from a great distance. I said, well, it's not that far. It's Swarthmore. It's in, Delaware County. It's not that far. And I do it all the time. It's just that, one train an hour runs basically. So you have to time everything right for the bus and the train and everything else. And I do apologize about my voice. My voice and throat have been a little funny, and I'm hoping that all the ginger I've been eating lately helps me out. And I feel comfort in that because I always feel better when I eat the ginger. But then I think of all those people in Wuhan, China. I'm sure they ate a lot of ginger, but they still got the coronavirus. Not that I'm saying that's what I have. So I just keep eating the ginger. We'll see what happens. Just hope I'm good for traveling next week. So I'm talking to the manager, and he said, you're coming in from a great distance. I can do this via email. I said, oh, you can? I said, boy, that would be great. So he said, I'll have Patricia sign. She's here now. She's a little disappointed she won't get to see you, but, at least you guys can get it done and you'll finally get it going. And I said, oh my God, that would be great. So Liz and I just came home, and within another 10 or 15 minutes, Bob had emailed me the documents that I needed to sign. I just had to, print them, sign them, scan them, send them back, and which I did later that day. Again, had to wait for Liz to be around so I could sign them, and so she could point me in the right direction and use. I don't know if you've ever seen. We use to sign anything. I have some people have metal ones, which I guess I should get because the plastic ones, we've broken a couple of them. It's basically a piece of plastic, and there is a space in the middle that's a long, rectangular space. So, you could sign in there. Now, some documents have a smaller space that you can sign, but, it serves the purpose and makes it a little bit better. And my signature has never been great. Whether I could see a little bit or not very well, my signature has always been awful. Everyone will tell you. It's just how it is. It's, my dad used to yell at me for it, but it is what it is. And, it's distinctive. It's not as nice as his was and not nearly as nice as my mom's was, because my mom had pretty nice handwriting back in the day, not maybe near the end. But again, that was an issue with the, holding the pen or paper or whatever, with the arthritis and not being able to grip the pen well. So I'm thinking, wow, this is so nice that this bank has done this for us. And I may have mentioned it in the episode where I talked about Patricia not using any kind of electronics to keep tabs on the money, because she, like I mentioned, she's older and she did everything. She did bank by phone, and, when she had to write a check, she would have a family member or a friend, write it out for her, and then she would just sign it. So again, the issue with WSFS has been they're changing their minimums, and they need us to have $500 in each of our accounts. We have 2 accounts there, a checking and a savings. Well, for a little organization that doesn't really have a lot of money, $500 is a lot if we want to do something for us on a larger scale. If, we have a few $100s in expenditures that, that could easily take us below the $500. Now, because of some fundraising things that we've done over the past few months, the one account has a pretty decent chunk of change in it now that, we would be okay with. But then the other issue is the National Federation of the Blind, who sets the guidelines for, everything that we do, really only likes an account to have $1,500 in it. So that means if we have only $1,500, that means we only have basically $1,000 to play with if there's any kind of, big event coming up that we need. Sometimes members are given a stipend if they go to an event to participate in the event. It happened last year for the National Convention, and it's happened at other times. So that would have been an issue. That $500 minimum would have been an issue then, because it covered like 6 people that stipend to help out defray the costs of that event in Las Vegas. So it's something that now that I am fully on board as the treasurer and I have control of the accounts, I now have to call someone at the NFB in Baltimore to see, hey, look, can I keep the 500 and then 1,500 above that, because it's just not working. And I honestly, I have never had a bank that has been so cooperative and so appreciative of our business and so helpful. Most banks, once you put the money in it, it doesn't matter. And I've looked around. As I've probably mentioned before, I went to a few banks, and one of them said, well, you can't do the online banking, but you get free checks. I said, okay, but then I need somebody to help me write the checks. I can't. Well, yeah, and they would say, yeah, but your wife could help you. I said, but what if I have to write a check and it's 2 a.m. and I'm doing some work then, which I often do, because that's the only time I have any kind of peace and quiet where the phone's not ringing, the texts aren't coming in, and things like that. And honestly, as I said to Liz yesterday, my most productive time is from like midnight or 12:30 until the time I go to bed. And sometimes if I'm on a roll and getting stuff done, sometimes I don't go to bed until 4, because I know once I wake up the next morning at 8 o'clock, the whole cycle starts over again with the texts and the emails and the calls and the robocalls on our home phone, which I hate having because of the robocalls. So it's just something with WSFS Bank, those minimums are the only issue that we have with them. Everything else is great. There's a branch in Media, so it's not that far. So Liz and I could run over there, or Liz could even take a deposit, on her way home from school if I have something that has to go in. So everything was great. Once everything got situated with the account, Bob emailed me what I needed to do to sign up. He emailed me the link to sign up for the online banking, because they have online banking. I could check the account. I can get all the information. I don't need to get paper statements, which are a waste for me. And I'm like, this is great. So I signed up for the online banking over the weekend, and I got all excited because it said it would take a couple days. And, on Tuesday, I got an email. So I was very excited. And then I read the email completely, and I thought, uh-oh, here is going to be the issue with WSFS. And let me just point out, WSFS is a bank that's been around for a long, long time, originally called Wilmington Savings Fund Society. They were based in, and still are based in, Delaware. And honestly, I think most banks are based in Delaware these days. But now they have the moniker, it's WSFS Bank. We stand for service. And I thought, man, that is so silly. But the more I deal with them, I'm thinking, it's spot on. And so there was a number to call. They needed to speak with me. And when I filled out the online application for do the online banking, it asked for current balance in the account, and it asked for the amount and the date of the last deposit. Well, again, I don't have that information. I have the balance information because, or at least I thought I did, because Patricia had given it at our Keystone Chapter Board meeting conference call over the weekend. And so I put that number in, and I thought that since she was at the bank on Friday, which, like I said, was the 21st, I thought, okay, well, maybe that's the day of the last deposit. Let me just take a guess at the number, and I put $16. It's a good guess because, again, we don't usually have a lot of money coming in to our organization. And, mostly dues, and we sell M&Ms, and the M&M sales could be a complete podcast, and I would have Harriet on because she will sell to anyone. And I know I've talked about her before with that. So maybe we'll do that. So I take a guess, I fill out the application. And so I call, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a problem. And I don't even think I was placed on hold for more than a minute when I dialed in. Once I punched the correct, pressed 1 for this or 2 for that. I pressed 2 for that, and I got a live person pretty quick. The person I got, her name was Cleopatra. So as I've talked about often, I love alternative rock. She said her name was Cleopatra. I automatically, in my head, of course, not over the phone to her, because she probably would have hung up on me, although the way their service is, maybe she wouldn't have. It made me think of the Lumineers song, and I'm singing that song in my head as I'm trying to speak to her about what's going on. And I was honestly, I was a little distracted, so she wasn't understanding what I was saying completely. And I went back from the beginning, and she finally got what I was trying to do. And she says, "Let me put you on hold. Let me go find a supervisor who can help out." She comes back in, a minute or two later, and she tells me that she has John on the line with me, and he was going to take over from there. And I thanked her. And so I start talking to this guy, John. And, again, John is appreciative of our business and so forth and so on. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy is going to knock us down. And, I give him all my info again just so he can verify. And he said, "Well, what did the email say?" And I I said, well, let me play it for you because, again, I'm, as I told Cleopatra, I'm blind and I use a screen reader to read, the email, and, I play the first paragraph for him. And he said, oh, okay, that shouldn't be difficult. He said, because I'm looking here now and I see the issue is you didn't have the right dollar amount for the balance. I said, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense, I guess. I guess the bank balance that she gave us at our meeting was at the end of the last statement, and in the meantime, there's been more money put in or some that came out. So he said, I can push this through. You'll get an email in a couple of days saying that it's been approved, and we'll go from there. And again, I'm thinking, no one, especially a bank, has ever been so nice and cooperative and helpful. We had an issue with Wells Fargo / Wachovia / First Union, and they were just nasty about it. I mean, they were just so completely nasty. And if you go back and look over tweets from a couple of years ago, I mean, you'll see my, what I was talking about. And even TD Bank, which I may have mentioned, we set up an account there for the estate of my mom, for my mom's estate, and we were given wrong information. So the money wasn't in there when they said it would be in there. They told us a day or two, and it ended up being 4. So when we paid an invoice, that was for my mom from whoever, the money wasn't there, and even though you put the money in, they then take it out and they hold it for a certain amount of time. Again, they told us 2 days. 4 days later, the money still wasn't in there, or finally went in there, I guess I should say. And 3 days later was when the vendor tried to take the money out, and of course the money wasn't there. So we got, all sorts of fees from the bank and all sorts of fees from the vendor. The bank ended up fixing their fees, and the vendor did not. So even, and that's where we were probably going to switch to. And again, I may still have to switch, and I really would hate to, because I just feel so comfortable dealing with WSFS that I don't want to switch. And, if I have to keep more in there than National wants, I'm going to make that call, I guess. And, until they say, hey, you got too much money in there. And again, too much is going to be, $400 more than what they want. So, again, we're not talking about high finances. We're talking at best, a couple of $1,000. So we'll see how that goes. And again, so that then leads me to, and again, I'm just shocked. Again, in today's day and age, people try to be nice and try, like AT&T, the CSRs they have, they try to be on your side and sound like they're on your side, but it's out of their hands. They're the bottom of the ladder, and, they say, well, I can't do anything about it. I understand what you're saying about, we've had some issues with something I don't remember. Oh, they unilaterally said that we needed to have 30 gigs, even though we didn't even use the 15 gigs that were in our plan. So they bumped us to 30 anyway, and charged us an extra $10 a month. But that's a story for another day. So in this day and age, when so much is done online, and the way WSFS has been, and even when I called to talk to the manager and I just got a teller or another, I don't know what else they would be at the bank, but I guess a teller, they were just so nice and so cooperative and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I can't put you through, but, he should be on for another 20 minutes, blah, blah, blah. It's so refreshing today to have that and to get that kind of service, because again, it doesn't happen very often for us. And it made me think back to, and I talked about this in the Washington seminar episode I did a few weeks ago, where Jasmine, who was our waitress at O's and Ah's, down in Washington when we were there, when I had their delicious mac and cheese. I shouldn't think about it now. Some people have it and some people don't. Some companies have it, but most don't. You can have a company that's terrible at it, but maybe you get the one person that's good at it. And it's just so refreshing to have it. It's almost like, you should be the one that's, helping out. And I later found out that the branch at 16th and Chestnut in Philly is the one where people go to train. And it just made a lot of sense because, again, they just couldn't have done enough for us getting the account set up. And it, our account has been there for a few years. I don't know how many years. So they just couldn't have been more helpful and, accommodating to get us set up and ready to go. And then unfortunately, in today's day and age, it just doesn't happen often. And I was so thankful for it. And so I don't know how big WSFS Bank is, but if you've got one in your area, please give them a try because, again, I just can't speak enough about them. And, we'll just have to go from there as far as our accounts go. I just hope we can keep them there because I don't want to switch. I know that will be a hassle and a headache, and providing the right documentation and then going back and forth. And, it's just not easy because I have to rely on public transport to get to and from. And, that's, as I've mentioned in this episode, not always reliable. And in fact, I can say that I went back and I looked at my history since I started taking the bus. I've attempted to take the bus 9 times. One time it never showed up, and I was supposed to take the bus to Springfield and then take the trolley into Media to meet Liz and our former neighbors who we're still friendly with, two families in Media for dinner, and we do it once a month. And it just didn't make sense for Liz to come all the way home and pick me up in Swarthmore when we were eating in Media, and Liz works in Media. So we thought that would have been a good idea. It didn't work out. I did it on another time, and I did a podcast about it, and it worked out. And that was one of the other times. The bus was a couple minutes late, which got me to the mall in Springfield, where I have to take the trolley from, a couple minutes late. So by the time I made the walk from the bus to the trolley was pulling out of the station. I was further away than the train, and I didn't run because I knew another one was coming in 20 minutes, and I was early enough that it wasn't going to make me late. So 9 times I tried to take it. I had the one issue when I tried to take the trolley, which, the bus was only a minute or two late. And look, I get it. There's traffic, there's, something else going on. I get it. But 8 or 9 minutes late is not, that's too long if you're setting it up. So, hey, you take the bus to the train and you'll get to the train before the train leaves. Because otherwise I would have had to have taken a bus around 35 or 40 minutes earlier to get to the train. And then what do I do on a day when, it's 32 degrees out and the wind is blowing, standing outside for 45 minutes, doesn't sound very nice to me. So 3 times there was an issue out of 9. If you're a baseball player, that's a great stat. Hey, you're batting .333, pretty good. You're an all-star. It's something. But, when it's on the wrong side of things, it's not so good. And I know that Jane complains a lot about the MTA up in New York with the subways. But again, they're coming pretty frequently. On the weekends they don't. Like, I talked to her over this past weekend and she had just missed one. The next one wasn't coming for 12 minutes. Okay, I get that. But still 12 minutes, I can't get the train even in 12 minutes here in Swarthmore. And all of this stuff is playing into where we end up moving next. We've got to either be in a place that's very walkable with a lot of things around, or in a city where, there's public transport that I can get to and from places while Liz is at work or doing something else. And clearly, SEPTA, out in the suburbs, getting into Philadelphia, it's especially where I live in Delaware County, there's the one line. I met someone at a podcast movement a couple of years ago when she and her husband were looking around to move to this area. They had moved from Houston. They ended up in a place called Jenkintown. Go ahead, you can say it, JTP. That didn't have much energy, did it? They moved there because 3 lines went through that station or a couple of stations in that area. So on the weekends, instead of having to wait an hour, and I'm not saying, you wouldn't have had to wait a little bit, maybe they came pretty quick in succession. So maybe if you missed the first one, the next one came 10 minutes later and the next one came 10 minutes later or even closer. I don't know, but you still don't have to wait an hour, and on the weekends and most times from Swarthmore into Philadelphia, it's an hour or, even coming out, during the morning and evening rush, it's a little bit different. And even that day was a little bit different. I would have only had to wait about 35 or 40 minutes, like I said, but it would have been past my meeting time, and I didn't know if that was going to work. So that's all playing into my thoughts as we start to think about, hey, where are we going to end up? Where it's warm and it's either walkable or public transport, or everything is right. I don't want to say in the building because I need more than that. I need more than than what my parents had when they first moved over to the independent living section of Maris Grove. So, and it's got to be, I'd like it to be more than, even what I have here. I have a drugstore, I have a market/cafe, I have a dry cleaner, I have a pizza place, and, within another, and that's all within maybe a quarter to a third of a mile. All that stuff is close. Within a mile, there's a few other restaurants. There's another pizza place. There's another couple of places in Swarthmore, downtown Swarthmore. I say that like it's a very big place, but it's one of those. It's one of those places that it's not very big. It's a college town that has like I said, a few places to eat, a couple other stores, and things like that. There's if you need a hardware store, there's one there. I'm guessing there's a card store there. I don't know. And there's a couple of salons and barbershops and things like that. If you need those as well. Again, it's a nice little place. And again, if you're in downtown, you're right near the train, so you don't have to worry about the bus. You just walk over to the train station and you're good to go. But again, getting back to WSFS, I just hope that there's other businesses out there that take care of their customers like they have. And, who knows going forward whether we stay with them, but I hope we do. And so we'll see. And of course, I will let you know what happens because that's what I do with this podcast. So now I have full control of the treasurer's position at the Keystone chapter. So I guess this would be a good time to ask maybe if you wanted to give a little donation. You can certainly make a donation via check, and I don't have anything else set up yet. So I hope to have either a Venmo account or some sort of app that we can take donations electronically. We do have a PayPal account, which has caused us some great issues trying to use it on another website other than the one site that it's originally meant for. But if you do have and still know how to write a paper check, it would be great if you could send a little donation. Again, doesn't have to be a lot. Any little amount you send would be greatly appreciated, would be very helpful for us in helping blind individuals in and around the Philadelphia area, blind kids, get them learning materials and all sorts of stuff. So make checks payable to the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. And the address is 1500 Walnut Street, Suite 200, Philadelphia, PA 19102. And I'll put the address and the mail, everything on the in the show notes page. That would be at ican'tseeyou.com/062. Remember, I can't see you is 7 letters. Sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 letters. iCantcu.com/062. And also on that page, of course, I'll be asking when you shop at Amazon if you would use my link. That would be greatly appreciated as well. And even if you don't go to the site, you can always just type in iCan'tSeeYou.com/Amazon, and you'll go right to Amazon. And if you buy something, I'll get a little commission. Liz will get some chai tea lattes that she loves so much and can't live without, evidently. So that is it for this episode of the I Can't See You podcast. I really do appreciate you listening in today. Remember, if you want to be part of the show, that would be very cool. You can call our line at 646-926-6350. Leave questions or comments. Even if you hate the show, let me know, and I'll use it in an upcoming episode. And again, rate, review, and if you haven't already, subscribe. All that would be appreciated. It'll help the show grow. And until the next episode, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Bench.